Hello, everybody, and welcome back to This Day in History. It is May 4th, 2024. Not that that matters, but it is This Day in History of 2004. Currently, right now, I'm getting an overabundance of liquid sunshine. That's right, it is raining sheets. It's an early Saturday morning. I'm on my way to a buddy's. We're gonna go do an appearance at a tattoo parlor for today, May the 4th. It's a Star Wars themed event, so we're gonna go do what we do. For those of you who don't know, I hate the term cosplay because I'm not a cosplayer, I'm a costumer. There is a difference, and if you want to know my soapbox, I'm about to spit it out for you. In my view, a cosplayer is someone who makes money off of the costumes that they produce. Jessica Negri, Yaya Han come to mind. That's their paid profession, is their costuming. I don't do that. When I put on a costume, it's because I used to anyway. I used to belong to certain costume clubs where we would don these costumes and we would portray characters out of whatever franchise we were representing, whether it was Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica, G.I. Joe. I've done V, I've done Aliens. I've done all the above. One thing I have not done was Star Trek because, as much as I like Star Trek, I'm just not into doing Star Trek costuming. And, I've met quite a few souls that belong to that costume franchise, and I have zero desire to ever associate with those people. So, yeah. So, that's what we're doing today. That's what I'm on my way to right now. But this isn't about that. This is about this day in history on May 4th. So let's start off with the birthdays, right? So there's a few people on this list that I've never even heard of, don't even really know who they are, but they're obviously someone of significance because, they made the list. Now, if you've ever wondered, where I'm getting my information from, I probably should have prefaced this in every video, but I go to Britannica.com, and basically I just go to this day in history, and it has a highlights of what happened on this day in history, and I jot them down on my little notebook here, and whatever fills the page, that's the episode of the day. So let's get into it. So on this day in 1796, an American educator by the name of Horace Mann would be born. In 1928, Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak would be born. Was born, birthday today. 1929, Audrey Hepburn. And I didn't know this, but she was actually Belgian born. I thought she was an American actress, but she is an American actress, but she was Belgian born, meaning she was born in Belgium. And at some point in her life, she had immigrated to the United States and became a very famous American actress. So I didn't know that she was Belgian born. Learn something new every day. See, I learn stuff along with you when it comes to this day in history. So, it's So, next is Keith Haring. Keith Haring was born on this day in 1958. He's an American artist. And also on this day, the last one of the bunch was Rory McIlroy, and he is a Northern Irish golfer. who was born on this day in 1989. They made it a point to state that he wasn't just an Irish golfer, but he was Northern Irish golfer, because they do tend to distinguish themselves differently. A lot of that due to the political and ideological differences between the two, and really what it comes down to is, as best as I can understand, it's all about who's loyal to the British Crown. You know, either you're loyal to the British Crown or you're not. And if you're not loyal to the British Crown, then you are, you're not just Irish. You're Northern Irish. And I forget who. See, I always thought it was the Northern Irish that rebelled against British rule, and the rest of Ireland was pro-Britain. But it could be the opposite. I could be mistaken. That was one conflict that I never quite understood. Me being of Irish descent, you would think that I'd have a little more insight on that, being of Irish descent, but I really don't understand that conflict a whole lot. But, it is what it is. Moving right along, on this day in 1814, Napoleon would land on the island of Elba, serving one of his two exiles. That's right, he was exiled twice. History kind of repeating itself. Santa Anna kind of had the same thing, is that when he was deposed, he was exiled somewhere once before, and then they brought him back, and where he made a second run at trying to rule the world, and then he was spanked again, and then he was exiled for a second time. And I only bring up Santa Anna's because Santa Anna kind of really fashioned himself after being a Napoleon. I think he idolized Napoleon much in the same way that a lot of current despots had idolized Hitler and wanted to follow in his footsteps. We talked about Saddam Hussein the other day, it being his birthday, and that he was a Hitler ideologue. He really liked what Hitler did. He tried to fashion himself after what Hitler did. Mostly it came about of like how to be. It's like all the dictators of the world, they look up to Hitler and they're like, this is how to be a dictator. And most of these dictators are also guilty of, mass killings, genocide, that sort of thing. And again, they look to Hitler as the shining beacon of how to engage in wholesale slaughter of human life. Moving right along in the Civil War here this day, during the Civil War in 1863, the Battle of Chancellorsville would happen. And in this battle, this is in Virginia, and this is a battle where the Union failed to really contain the Confederate Army, and so they it's one of the many times where the Confederates actually beat the Union for no reason other than the Union just had poor leadership. Lincoln went through 4 or 5 different generals before he, and I think Grant was the 4th or 5th general before he finally got things settled. He had generals that I think they were just scared of Lee, and anytime they engaged him on the battlefield, they, out of fear, they would, they'd pack it up and they'd hightail it out of there. Lincoln needed generals who had a backbone and weren't afraid of Lee, and that was definitely Grant. But when Grant took over, it became a war of attrition at that point because, well, quite honestly, Grant understood one thing. The ratio from Union to Confederates was 4-1, and he understood that he was going to be throwing meat to the grinder, and that's how you whittled down the enemy. That's how he beat Grant, or Grant beat Lee, was he just whittled his forces down. Got to remember, Lee had 180 some odd thousand, 180 or 184,000 men at the beginning of the Civil War, and by the time of his surrender at Appomattox Courthouse, he had just shy of 24,000 men left. Now the men wanted to fight, but Lee also knew that if he would condemn them all to death if he chose to continue fighting, because Grant would have whittled them down to nothing. So, Battle of Chancellorsville was today in 1863. In 1886, the Haymarket riot of Chicago would break out, and really what it was, that was a clash between the police and labor protesters protesting the labor conditions and the like. And that was one of those incidents that probably had lent itself to the creation of labor unions, and the labor laws that we have today are as a result of the creation of labor unions, and incidents like this that happened that kind of paved the way to get us the 40-hour work week, the sick leave, the sick time, all the things that we take for granted. We have thanks to these unfortunate situations that have happened that led up to that. In 1919, another protest happens in China. It was known as the May 4th movement, and it was Chinese students were protesting the Paris Conference in regard to Japan retaining rights and possessions of Germany at the conclusion of World War I. And this was in was it Shantung? Shantung. I'm probably butchering it. Sorry. But it was another protest. They protested that, Japan got to have some stuff that they didn't think they should have had. In 1942, it's the Battle of the Coral Sea. The United States would turn back the Japanese fleet at where was it? Port Moresby. Pretty crucial battle, really. It's what helped kind of turn the tide during the war and help get us one step closer to victory there. In 1959, the Grammys were awarded. Of note, Ella Fitzgerald, Frank Sinatra, and the Kingston Trio. They were all Grammy winners, and that was 1959. 1961, another protest. This time, it was protesting segregation, and on the interstate bus system back then. They were protesting. That was segregation. Required blacks to sit in the back of the bus so that whites could sit up front, and so there was a what was called a freedom ride, and it was a national protest against segregation. In 1966, Jose Aznar became Spain's prime minister. He had a lot of opposition, a lot of terrorism and such that he had to deal with. Is that really 1966 or is that 1986? I don't know. I may have miswrote that. Sorry. And then the last one is on this day in 2000. Ken Livingstone was elected mayor of London. And what's interesting about that is that it was the first time that British voters got to elect candidates into any form of government office. It was a huge deal for them. So that's it. That is this day in history for May 4th. I got to go inside and get something real quick before I head on out. So I'd say enjoy your day. Have a blessed day wherever you are. Hopefully you got some sunshine. But, liquid sunshine's also necessary. So there you go. Take care, and we'll do this again tomorrow for May 5th. And, yeah. So, as always, be blessed, and may the 4th be with you. Take care.